My child, come closer. Let me tell you the truth I carried for over 40 years, a truth so heavy, so shameful, the entire village tried to bury it. And it all began when I married a man everyone feared, for reasons they refused to tell me. But listen carefully, because the secret they hid from me ended up becoming the reason I loved him more deeply than any man alive. I didn't know it then. Back then I thought fear was just a feeling. Later, I learned it had a face, and his name was Luke Beaumont. It was April, warm air, sun filtering through the orchard. I was 25, hanging laundry, humming some silly tune. Life felt simple, almost safe. Then I saw my father walking toward me from the trees, his hat in his hand, his shoulders slumped, his eyes trembling. "Marie," he said quietly, "come here, we need to talk." My mother stepped out behind him. She avoided my eyes. That scared me more than anything. Papa took a shaky breath. "Mr. Beaumont has chosen you to marry his son, Luke." The basket slipped from my hands. Cloth spilled into the dirt. "Chosen me? For marriage?" My voice cracked. "But Papa, I don't love him. I barely know him." He looked down at the ground like it might swallow him whole. "Child, love ain't always the first thing. Sometimes survival is. If I refuse, we lose everything. The job, the house. Survival." That word hit harder than any slap. Luke Beaumont, 40 years old, quiet, withdrawn, always standing in shadows, always watching life from the edges. A man people respected, but did not invite. And the whispers. Dear God, the whispers. At the bakery. "Poor girl." At the well. "She has no idea." At the tailor. "He was born wrong. She'll see." At church. Mothers pulling their daughters away from him. One woman even tugged her teenage girl aside and whispered sharply, "Don't you dare get too close. You don't want what he carries." And I stood there holding my prayer book, feeling the heat of shame from a secret I didn't even know yet. When Luke arrived days later, he looked like a man bracing for execution. Nice shirt, polished shoes, terrified eyes that never stayed on me for long. "Marie," he said gently, "I know this arrangement wasn't your choice, but I'd like us to talk. Maybe get to know each other, if you'll allow it." His voice shook. His hands trembled, like he feared I'd run before the wedding even happened. I wanted to say no, to run, but I thought of my parents, their tired faces, the thin walls of our house, so I nodded. And the cruelest part, my child? As the village watched us walk together for the first time, I kept hearing the same sentence whispered behind my back. "She'll learn the truth on the wedding night, just like the others did." As the wedding approached, my child, my courage shrank day by day. The whispers grew teeth, the stares grew sharper, and every woman in the village watched me like a lamb, walking toward a slaughterhouse. One morning, I reached my breaking point. I wrapped a shawl over my shoulders and walked into town, pretending to shop, but really hunting for the truth. At the general store, 3 women were huddled close, whispering hard. "She doesn't know what she's marrying into." No woman lasted a single night. Poor thing. She won't be the first to cry. My cousin saw it when she worked at the Beaumont Manor. She said it looked painful just to live with. My stomach twisted. Saw what? I moved closer, pretending to look at Thread. One of them noticed me. Her lips tightened. The whispers died in her throat. They all turned, 3 pairs of eyes full of pity, the kind of pity you give someone already doomed. "Bonjour, Marie," one of them said too sweetly. "Buying cloth for your trousseau?" "Yes," I said, "for the wedding." They looked at each other. No one answered. Outside, I leaned against the wall and fought the urge to scream. The whole village knew something about my future husband, something they wouldn't give words to. So I went to the only person brave enough to tell the truth, old Miss Harlow, the retired midwife. She sat under her fig tree, sewing with steady hands. When she saw me, she just nodded slowly, like this moment had been walking toward us for years. "You're here for answers?" she said softly. "And you're afraid of what they'll cost?" "Miss Harlow," I whispered, "what is wrong with Luke Beaumont?" She sighed, the kind of sigh heavy with other people's pain. "Marie, Luke is a good man, a gentle one, but he was born with a deformity, a physical one, and it has followed him his whole life." My heart dropped. "What kind of deformity?" She shook her head. "That is for your husband to tell you, not for me, not for anyone. But 3 women tried to marry him," she added quietly, "and none stayed past the wedding night." I walked home feeling like the ground was tilting beneath my feet, like the world I knew had been built on a trap door. That evening, when Luke came for dinner, fate decided to cut just a little deeper. As we ate, my father joked, "So, Luke, how soon until we hear little footsteps in this house?" Luke nearly dropped his fork. His face went ghost white. He coughed till his eyes watered. I saw real terror in him, not embarrassment, not shyness, terror. Later, outside under the plum tree, he finally spoke. "Marie, there are things about me I've never been able to say. You're going to discover them soon, and I'm scared you'll leave like the others." My heart squeezed, because in that moment, I saw the weight he carried, the shame, the memories, and for the first time, I felt fear, not of him, but for him. "My child, this is the chapter where most people lean in closer. The truth did not arrive gently. It arrived on my wedding night like a storm that had been waiting for me my entire life. The ceremony had been beautiful on the surface. White dress, flowers, music, smiles glued onto faces. But underneath it all, I felt the village holding its breath. Women watching me walk down the aisle like someone watching a carriage on the edge of a cliff. Men avoiding Luke's eyes, young girls whispering behind their hands. And when the priest spoke of children, Luke's knuckles went white around my fingers. He looked like he wanted to vanish right there at the altar. After the feast, they sent us upstairs. A beautiful room, roses, candlelight, a bed too large, too quiet, too expectant. The door closed. The laughter downstairs faded. Luke stood at the edge of the bed like a prisoner waiting for judgment. "Marie," he whispered, "there's something I need to show you, and once you see it, I won't blame you if you want to leave." My own fear rose up in my throat. Not fear of him, fear of my own weakness. What if I wasn't strong enough, brave enough, good enough to stay? Still, I nodded. "Luke, whatever it is, I'll listen." His hands shook as he undressed. Every button felt like a confession. Every breath, a prayer asking not to be abandoned. When he finally stepped out of his clothes, I understood the nightmare that had followed him since boyhood. He had been born with a severe deformity, a twist in the most intimate part of himself. His manhood curved sharply, unnaturally, painfully, a condition that made closeness difficult and the idea of intimacy almost unbearable. He covered himself instinctively as if his body were something sinful. "This," he whispered through tears, "is why no woman stayed. The first screamed, the second said I was less than a man, the third laughed. My child, my heart broke. not because of what I saw, but because of what they had done to him. He waited for my disgust, my scream, my rejection. I could feel his shame in the air between us, thick and choking. But instead of running, I took a step toward him. "Luke," I whispered, "you're not broken. You're not less. You're not something to fear." He stared at me, stunned, like no one in his life had ever spoken those words. We didn't touch that night, not like newlyweds are expected to. Instead, we sat beside each other on the bed, two wounded souls sharing a silence that somehow felt like a beginning. He fell asleep at last, breathing evenly, his face softer than I'd ever seen it. And as I watched him sleep, I realized something. The thing the village told me to fear was the very thing that needed my compassion most. My child. I didn't know it yet, but that night wasn't the end of his shame. It was the beginning of our healing. The months after the wedding were harder than anything I'd imagined. The village didn't let us forget, not for a moment, at the market. "No baby yet, Marie?" "Maybe he's not capable. Maybe she should see a healer." One woman even smirked and said loud enough for Luke to hear, "Well, some men just aren't made for family life." Another time, as we passed the church, a mother yanked her daughter away from him and hissed, "Don't stare." It's not polite, but the look on her face said something else. Don't end up like her. Luke heard every word, even the ones spoken in half whispers. He started walking a little behind me in town, as if his absence could shield me from their judgment. It didn't. They just aimed at both of us instead. I saw the pain flash across his face before he turned away and forced a smile. That night he broke. He collapsed onto our bed, face buried in his hands. "They know," he said, shaking. "They all know I'm not enough." I sat beside him, put my hand on his back. "Luke, look at me." He didn't, so I said it louder. "Look at me." He lifted his face, eyes red, heart shattered. "You deserve a real man," he whispered. "Someone who isn't this." And right there, my own vulnerability hit me like lightning, because I wasn't sure I was strong enough either. Not for this judgment, not for this pressure, not for the endless whispers. "I'm scared too," I admitted softly. "I don't know if I can face all this. Some nights I want to pack a bag and run, but I'm still here. And I need you to fight with me. Not alone. With me." His breath caught. "Marie, no one has ever tried for me." He said it like a confession, like a little boy who'd finally said out loud what had been breaking him since childhood. That night we tried again, slowly, carefully, with guidance from the doctor's manual and a lot of courage. We talked more than we touched. We laughed nervously. We adjusted, stopped, started again, listened to each other's pain. And my child, for the first time, it didn't end in pain. It ended in hope. Little by little, we learned what worked. We learned each other's bodies. We learned trust. Some nights we failed. Some nights we argued. Some nights we just held each other and let the world talk itself tired outside our door. But after every attempt, whether it went well or not, Luke would whisper, "Thank you for staying." My child, staying is not weakness. Staying is strength. Staying is saying, "I see your wound, and I will not use it against you." And together, step by fragile step, we grew stronger. 4 years passed before our first miracle arrived, our daughter Colette, then our sons Antoine and little Jean. Each time Luke held a newborn, he cried quietly, like a man finally forgiven by life. He would trace their tiny fingers, kiss their foreheads, and whisper, "I never thought I'd be a father. I never thought any of this was meant for me." The village no longer whispered with pity. They stared in awe, confused by the sight of a man they once called broken, cradling the proof that they'd been wrong all along. Not because we had children, plenty of couples had children, but because they saw a marriage that survived what everyone expected to destroy us. We built a life, a family, a home full of healing. The house was never fancy. The roof leaked some winters. The floorboards creaked. We patched clothes instead of buying new ones. But there was laughter in those walls, arguments too, silent dinners after hard days, long talks at the table when the kids were asleep, tired hugs at the end of long seasons in the fields. And over time, our love grew, not fast, not fiery, but steady and deep. A love made of patience and forgiveness and shared wounds. When the children were older, they'd sometimes ask, "Mama, why does Papa walk a little carefully?" Or, "Why does he go so quiet when people joke about men and strength?" And I'd say, "Because life hurt him once. But he chose to be gentle instead of bitter. He chose to love instead of hate." They learned more from that than any sermon in church. Years rolled by. Our hair went gray. Our hands grew wrinkled and spotted. The village changed. New families came. Old gossips died. But every morning, Luke still reached for my hand first. Now, at 74, I look at Luke, my husband of 52 years, and I know this truth. The secret that once terrified me became the reason I loved him most, because that secret taught us what real love actually is. Love is not two perfect people finding each other. Love is two imperfect souls choosing every day to stay. To stay when the village talks, to stay when the shame burns, to stay when your own fear tells you to run. My child, that is why I finally tell this story. Not because it is painful, but because it is proof that even the deepest shame can become the greatest bond when two hearts refuse to give up. If someday you find yourself faced with someone who is wounded, afraid, convinced they're unlovable, remember this old woman's words. You don't heal people by fixing them. You heal them by refusing to leave. And sometimes the secret the whole world tells you to fear turns out to be the doorway to the greatest love of your life.